Good morning. Yesterday I did a kind of frightful discovery. I realized that except for like maybe two gentlemen here, I'm probably like one of the oldest people in the group. And that's probably going to happen more and more to me as time goes by. So from that conclusion, I said maybe it's useful to give some idea of like my career so far, like which is like a career kind of like in altruism, which with its ups and downs. It's very brief. I hope it doesn't bore you, and then I'll talk a bit about strategy. So my story and then strategy. So my story starts like at age 10 when I thought like I had this dog under the stove, like very cozily in our house, and we petted him, and there was this cow on the meadow in the rain in front of our house, and I was wondering what is the morally relevant difference which explains to me that I do this treatment with the one being and the other treatment with the other being. And I couldn't find an answer to that, a rationally or a morally relevant answer. And of course, what happened then was that well, I didn't go vegan. I loved meat too much, and I ordered meat all the time in restaurants. And it was only about 10 years later that I read Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, and I started to talk to people. And finally, I stopped eating animals, and I wrote my thesis about animal liberation, or well, let's say the relationship between humans and animals. And as I did that, I discovered that meat was related to all kinds of problems, environmental, health problems, hunger problems. You know these things. It's the #1 cause of deforestation. There's a lot more people you can feed when you give plant food directly to people rather than giving it to a cow first and then eating that cow. There's a huge problem with all kinds of health diseases. And if you're a Belgian, you ate 1,800 animals in your lifetime. So that's like a large number of petting zoos altogether that you eat if you're just a normal average meat eater. So my conclusion was that meat was a wonderful problem in the sense that it carried within it the seeds of so many solutions or partial solutions to a lot of really socially relevant problems. And I decided to like kind of spend the rest of my life on it at that point. But of course, maybe you know that doing something good is kind of like the most difficult thing to make a living of. You can make a living easily of selling soap and selling some laundry detergent and whatever, but if you want to change the world, it's not easy to make a living. So there was no job in Belgium, so I went to the United States for a 6-month internship in different animal rights organizations. I almost didn't go back because I was arrested because I was walking around as a pig on the Capitol steps. And we set the fire there with PETA, and they thought I set the fire, so I was... Yeah. But in the end, I got home anyway, and I founded EVA, Ethical Vegetarian Alternative, which presently is an organization that has 12 paid staff members. And we were, I think, and still are, the first and the only organization in the world to derive or to get a substantial amount of money from the government. So we get €165,000 a year. We have been getting that since 2005, and we'll normally, if everything goes well, we'll get it for many years more. So I think we did that, or we achieved to get that because we were able to show that the problem of meat is a socially relevant problem. And like in the introduction was said, we managed to make Ghent the first city in the world to encourage an official weekly vegetarian day, which is a Thursday. And this is news that in 2009 went all over the world and inspired a lot of other cities, other governments, other groups, etc. But then in 2014, I had what I call a leadership burnout. This organization was my life. It was my child. I could not imagine my life without it. I was thinking like this is the job that I will do as a director till I'm 65 or 70 or 85 or whatever. At a certain point I just noticed that like I was fighting against some things and I wouldn't be able to solve them. And in my case it was like, maybe some of you suffer from it, it's like a very high degree of uncertainty, like never being sure of anything, and that as a leader, as a decision maker, that's a very difficult thing. I also had difficulty like to tell people, like exactly because of this uncertainty, I had difficulty to tell people like to correct them or to like to give them feedback in a constructive way. I always was like too hard or too soft, and I was perfectionist, so I demanded too much of people, and then I knew that, so then I would like overcompensate by demanding too little, etc., etc. So a lot of like problems that I tried to solve, but that in the end I said like, okay, I'm going to like stop trying. So I was out for like on sick leave for a year, and I had a lot of time to think, to write, etc. And now I decided to like to be on my own, to be on myself, to like not have to deal with any other people. I mean, I like people, but it's easier to a certain extent to work on yourself. So I started to write this blog, and basically what I've done, or what I did was, so this was me talking to consumers, to people, to citizens, and basically what I've done was I've gone meta. You know, now this is me like talking to activists, talking to consumers. All right, that's kind of what I do with my blog and what I do with talks that I give all over Europe. And I'm also writing a book on vegan communication strategy. And in terms of that, this is another way you can see it, like one person saves so many animals, but if you, as the one person, convince some other people to go vegetarian, vegan, you save many more animals. And of course you can take another meta level and maybe another meta level. And one of the things I try to tell people, and this is a bit related to effective altruism, is it's not just what you eat, it's not just your diet, not just what you put in your mouth, but it's like your whole communication has probably a bigger impact on eating animals than what you put in your mouth. Like if you are really a nice ambassador for veganism, that's probably more important. And there's other factors. I mean, your own consumption, I've put, this is like arbitrary proportions, but just to give an idea, but this is your own consumption, there's your communication, there's what you do with your time, and there's what you do with your money. I don't have to explain this to you, but there's a lot more than what you put in your mouth. And if you're going to talk about veganism to other people, then my number one advice, and I have whole talks about that, is to try to walk in other people's shoes, to try to estimate, to guess what it is for them, for meat eaters, to hear our message. I think that's the most important skill any activist can have. All right, so now something about strategy. This is the world we want to get. Like, I mean, me personally, it's a vegan world. It's so this is a foodscape. It's done by an American photographer, and everything you see here is consists of vegetables or fruits. You see, like this is broccoli forest, and this is like a bread wagon. Only in the middle there's like a cheese village, but I just usually don't tell that to people. So at first, if you want to get there at first, it doesn't look good at all. So we have this amount of meat consumption right now, and this is the expected meat consumption in 2015, and that's largely due to countries like India and China, who are increasing their meat consumption, right? And so this is in itself a very good idea, I think, for effective altruism, and it's like a very low crowded area. Literally, well, not literally, it's very crowded there, but in terms of animal activism, there's a lot to be done there, and I think if you raise money, we could as well raise money for people, for organizations or people to work there, over there, because this is where the incredible increase in meat consumption, animal products consumption is going to come from. So we have to do something about that. So the problem with meat eating is, I derived this from Melanie Joy. Maybe you've heard about her 3 ends of justification. So I didn't want to be, well, I wanted to add some ends. So I have 5 ends of justification. So meat is, or animal products are normal. They're everywhere. So we think they're just entirely normal to do. So one of the things I say is like, why do most people eat meat? Most people eat meat because most people eat meat, right? So they're natural, they're necessary. We think they are necessary. We think they are necessary for health, for nutrition. They are nice. They are tasty. Like I said, I needed like about 10 years to stop eating them. And they're not the first thing we worry about. There's all kind of other things, and this is not the top of mind for most people. So for most people, going vegan looks like this, right? there's a huge chasm between us and being vegan. It looks very difficult, and we can say like thousands of times, oh, going vegan is easy, and there's so many products, etc. For many people, for most people, it is probably not. And this is something we realize if we put ourselves in other people's shoes. Okay? So how is it ever going to happen? How do we get to this vegan world? I think there's two kind of factors that we usually use in a movement. And those are, I mean, you can make different distinctions, but this is one of the distinctions I make. We can use moral factors and we can use non-moral factors, factors that have nothing to do with morality at all. So the moral factors are like, we tell people, like I just did, how many animals are killed, how many trees are cut, etc. for these things. So in terms of motivating people, this is, again, the moral and the non-moral. So we can try to motivate this person to jump, to do the high jump here and to build their skills and to get better ever and to be really motivated to be the best in the world, or we can lower the bar. Okay, we can make it easier. So this is like a non-moral thing. I mean, if you would do it in sports, it would be a very moral thing, but the comparison is not entirely apt. But you see what I mean? It's about making things easier for people. So lowering the bar. So you can easily imagine, I mean, how many people are vegan here? How many are vegetarian? And how many are neither? Okay. It's fine, you're very welcome. So imagine the vegans among you, if this was the only thing you could eat for the rest of your life, who would still be vegan? Yeah. Yeah. So we think, I mean, and we definitely say that we would still be vegan. Of course, we can't know. But another question is like, if this had been the only thing available when you went vegan or when you were thinking about going vegan, would you have gone vegan? I think like only a monk would have gone vegan, right?
It's the only thing you have no other choice.
Well, yeah, there's meat apart from that. Yeah. So there's only a very tiny amount of people that would do it in those circumstances. But then it progresses. Like you can think of like the macrobiotic, the reform kitchen, like cuisine in like maybe 30 years ago. That was already better. We could like cook with these grains and beans and etc. And so some more people go vegan because of that. And then we have like something like tofurkey. And tofurkey is or these like really great meat substitutes. They're like getting really good. And so even more people go vegan. And then we have, in the end, we may have even meat that is from a lab or meat that is like virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. Right? And then we can have even more people. So the point is here that as these alternatives get better, get more available, get more nutritious, get better in quality and quantity, the required motivation to go vegan decreases. I think that's very important. We cannot, I mean, the people who are vegan here, they're kind of like the early adopters, right, in the innovation curve. Like, we probably act different, think different than most other people. So other people need something else than us. So this is also, again, walking in other people's shoes. So, but still, in our movement, in the animal rights movement in general, what we pay most attention to are these moral factors. And why is that? We think they work. We think they work with slavery, for instance, right? We think, so here it says like 3 million of your fellow beings are in chains. This is a moral argument. We think this in the animal rights movement very much so. We think that this is the factor that ended slavery, that we were all so enraged about the moral indignities about it. But that's not entirely true. I mean, that was definitely a part of it. But of course, there were other interesting or very important factors, like the steam machine, the steam engine, which made sure that slave labor in certain circumstances got more expensive than other alternatives, right? So this is a very important thing. Slavery was ended by a war from the north to the south, the north against the south. It's a very important argument that we usually forget. So, but we don't like this. Why don't we like this? We really want people to go vegan for moral reasons. We want them to do it for the right reasons, right? Do you have that feeling that like when they do it for health reasons or some other reasons, like, yeah, it's not entirely what we want. And we want them to care. And I can entirely understand that. We want them to care. It's only going to be like a really nice society for animals, for other people, if we feel it in our hearts, if we have empathy, if we do it for the right reasons. But the good news is that there's two ways to try to change people. So normally, I mean, there's attitude and the behavior. And normally we think if we influence people's attitude, then this will lead, or we hope, this will lead to behavior change. If I tell you there's so many animals killed for food, you will change your behavior, right? Often it doesn't work like that. It's the attitude-behavior gap, right? But apart from this direction, it also works in this direction. If we influence behavior first, then it can lead to attitude change, right? So an example is this, of how your behavior influences your attitude. This is a bullfighter, and this is a butcher. And basically they do the same thing. These two people, they kill cows, right? But which of the two do you think normal omnivores or vegans are more frustrated and enraged by and angry at? Which is it? It's of course the bullfighter. And why is that? Not used to that. That's a factor. There's all kind of different factors. A lot of people will say, for instance, bullfighting is like trivial, why this is about nutrition and health and food. But I think one of the most important facts is that people are participating in that and not participating in this, most of them, right? In Spain, of course, many people will be participating in this, but generally in other countries, they are not complicit in this. So it's much more difficult to judge something when you are complicit in it yourself, when you're doing that behavior yourself. So in this case, your behavior influences the attitude you have about something. Okay? So that's why I think this development of things that can change your behavior, and then mainly in the form of alternatives, is very important. So I'll show you some of the alternatives that are currently like in development, and I think these are really interesting things also to invest in and to be the focus of effective altruism. So this is Pat Brown. I met him maybe 5 years ago. He's a chemist at Stanford University, a really brilliant guy. And he took, back then he took leave of absence of the school, of the university, to devote himself entirely to making the ideal meat substitute. And 5 years ago it was just a dream. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, he was offered 300 million euros by Google to buy his company. He refused. So what he's doing is his company is called Impossible, and he makes this burger, and this burger actually bleeds. Because of the heme iron in it, it actually leaves like a little red trace in your plate, just like meat does. I'm not saying that this is like the selling point, but the idea is that like it's the idea is that you have like a product that is really virtually identical as meat and even better. Okay, that's what he is aiming for. So this is the Impossible cheeseburger. Another guy is Josh Tetrick, who just said, like, I want to do something about the biggest form of animal suffering in animal agriculture. And he asked his friend, and his friend said, like, do something about eggs, about egg-layer hens. And so he said, like, okay, let's try to make an alternative for eggs. And so he raised a couple of $1 million in Silicon Valley. And so the company, maybe you've heard of it, became Beyond Eggs. And Beyond Eggs has eggless mayo on the shelves, and it's been in the news a lot. These guys do a great job of getting in the news without a marketing budget. They were in the news because there's an avian flu in the United States, so there's egg shortage. So companies have a shortage of eggs, so they are all calling these guys and saying, like, we don't have enough eggs, can we try to substitute? And maybe they will stick to it, right? And even more recently, last week, they were in the news because there was apparently kind of like a conspiracy of the egg producing business against them. There were emails discovered about how they could counter this little company, right? So it's really making waves in the nutritional. They call it themselves the fastest growing food company in the world. These guys are working on milk. not just soy milk or almond milk or whatever, but a milk that is almost identical to real milk, right? So they're using a yeast and they're injecting it with cow DNA, and they want to have a milk that is identical in nutritional value to real milk, and it should be on the market in 2017. Could be a game changer, very disruptive. This is called moo-free, right? Vegan cheese, the same thing. People are working on making actual cheese from that milk, right? They're also trying to develop their own milk and then making cheese of it. So this is done by like an open source laboratory. Yeah, a lot of people really miss cheese. And ice cream, of course, you can do. This guy, Andras Forjaks, is mainly focusing on leather, on making leather jackets, etc., from cultural leather, like from a lab, okay? Modern Meadow is called. And this is Mark Post, who maybe you know. He made the first lab-grown burger a couple of years ago in I don't know when it was, but it cost, it was all over the news, $250,000 for this burger. I mean, of course, the developing cost, etc. But just the mere media value of this was incredible. I think there was never a moment in history when meat and the problems of meat were in the international press so much at the same time. It was really incredible. So what we're doing, basically what we're trying to do, is that we can still have all these products that people like, but without the animals, right? So this is a really fascinating and exciting time to be in. We have the same things in terms of like out-of-home eating. So this is Native Foods Cafe. This is a chain in the US which has like about 20 restaurants right now, and they want to expand it to a couple of hundred in the next years. Same thing for the Veggie Grill, vegan chain, want to expand to a couple of hundred. This is like a vegan McDonald's, a bit better, a bit more expensive, but it's really doing well. Cinnaholic, they sell cinnamon buns. They're vegan. People go there just because they're great cinnamon buns, not because they're vegan, and they're expanding to really soon to a couple of dozen stores, right? This is really incredible. So one important thing is that all these things, all these ventures are probably mostly done or mostly emerged not because of a tiny group of strict vegans, but more because of vegetarians and meat reducers. These are the driving forces behind the market, right? These are the forces that create the demand and thus the supply. So I tell vegans never to laugh at meat reducers, okay? Because if you get a lot of vegan products outside in this city or wherever, it's mostly thanks probably to meat reducers. Okay, so very important. So what's happening in the future? I think several things may happen. Meat may become too expensive because of all these problems associated with it, like sustainability problems, etc. It may become too risky. We've had like a couple of times in the past we've had really big problems with outbreaks like avian flu, etc. Maybe sometime we will hit the big one. Meat may become redundant just because we're doing great things without meat. Like chefs more and more are creating wonderful dishes just without meat, and you eat there and you say like, who would ever miss meat or animal products in this dish? It may become redundant because we have technological solutions, and then after all these things, I think later meat will become immoral, right? And that's the way I think we will achieve a vegan world in the end. All right. You can read more strategy, considerations, and text. I'm also writing a book which is probably going to be called "How to Veganize the World in 30 Years," and I welcome your. I will try to put some effective altruism concept in there. I really welcome your feedback, your input. You can read the blog and comment there, or you can send me email or befriend me on Facebook or whatever. All right. Thank you very much.